Harpart. I'm an assistant superintendent of secondary schools in the Osseo Area School District. And we're so pleased to have all of you here tonight to learn more about the attendance boundary proposed changes. We have a lot of information to share with you this first half hour of the evening. And some of the topics that we'll be going over include a little bit about who we are as a school district in Osseo Area Schools, what an attendance boundary is, why attendance boundaries need changing, the change process timeline, the parameters used to form the proposed scenarios and details surrounding them, the transition plan, and your opportunities to share thoughts. Tonight, this will include splitting into small groups to share your feedback and to ask questions at the end of our presentation. As we share information in the next 30 minutes, please make sure to make notes of any comments or questions that you will want to share afterward in your small group. Before we get started, I want to take a minute to talk about one thing that we're striving to do in Osseo Area Schools. The last couple of years, we've been working towards becoming one community for all, where all voices are heard and valued. And this means all of our stakeholders, all our students, our staff, our parents, our caregivers, and our community members play an important role in our district. You should feel seen and appreciated as part of our Osseo Area Schools family, always, whether that's today, tomorrow, or 5 weeks from now. You are all important to us. And the main way that we ensure all voices are heard and valued is through a concept called holding space. Holding space means that we are willing to walk alongside another person in whatever journey they're on without judging them, making them feel inadequate, trying to fix them, or trying to impact the outcome. When we hold space for other people, we open our hearts, offer unconditional support, and let go of judgment and control. So tonight, as we enter our space together, please be respectful and understand that each person has their own narrative and lived experience. And please be inclusive of all. Such an environment will allow everyone to be their authentic self and to be valued and heard. This will help us build a collaborative community as we venture through this attendance boundary change process. Thank you in advance for your help with this. So let's take a quick look at some facts surrounding our district. Osseo Area Schools encompasses all or parts of 8 communities. That ranges from Dayton, Rogers, and Corcoran in the far northwest to parts of Plymouth to the south, and then Brooklyn Center to the east. The 2 largest communities we serve are Brooklyn Park and Maple Grove, with the city of Osseo in the center. About 160,000 community members live within this entire area. We are the 5th largest school district in the state, serving approximately 21,000 students. And more than 15,000 of our students choose to utilize the transportation services offered. That equates to nearly 36,000 bus routes. We have a total of 31 school buildings in Osseo Area Schools. Currently, there are 24 traditional elementary, middle, and high schools, and we have 7 special program sites, including an area learning center and early childhood centers. Soon, we're going to have a 32nd school building, and thanks to our community support of building a better future in 2023, a new elementary school is being built in the very northwest corner of the district, and it's set to open in the fall of 2026. Our school buildings are between 24 and 100 years old. The sizes of each building vary because of the different time periods in which they were built, which has created capacity level differences amongst our district schools. This is most notable at the elementary level. The older schools tend to be smaller, and the newer schools are a little bit larger. The school buildings were also placed where community growth was being experienced during those different eras, and because of space being available. In a general sense, Brooklyn Park and Brooklyn Center tend to be more established neighborhoods, and Maple Grove, Dayton, and Plymouth are more growing areas. And one last fun fact, all of these school buildings are spread out on 703 acres of land. It's important for us to know that our community members feel that we're doing a good job at achieving our mission. And the great news for us is that feedback continues to show that our community thinks highly of us and has strong support for what's being done. In a recent survey, 82% of survey respondents rated us as either good or excellent on the quality of education at Osseo area schools. 87% indicated that they believe that all or most of our student needs are being met, and 84% said they're proud of our schools and would recommend them to others. So now let's dive into attendance boundaries. Some of the language we're using to share about this change may be a bit confusing. So we want to be sure it's clear and understandable as you interact with the information. So what exactly is an attendance boundary? An attendance boundary is the geographical area from which students are eligible to attend a district school. This means that your household address is assigned an elementary school, a middle school, and a high school. So in essence, this boundary process change may change the elementary and or the middle school that your household is currently set to attend. And a quick note, as a result of attendance boundary changes, students may be moved between school buildings within our district, but attendance boundary changes will not impact which students are assigned to attend Osseo area schools versus attending any of the surrounding districts such as Anoka Hennepin, Wayzata, Robbinsdale, etc. You may be wondering why attendance boundary changes now. Most simply, it has to do where our students are going and what our schools can hold. This can obviously change from year to year or from decade to decade. The Enrollment and Capacity Management Advisory Committee, or ECMAC, has been monitoring enrollment shifts in conjunction with our school building capacities for the last several years. Their most recent reports have detailed that a significant enrollment imbalance exists and that it's to the point that it should be addressed. Specifically, there is significant growth in northwest portions of the district. Future housing and redevelopment are also expected in these same areas. In addition to this, there are also some district schools that are under capacity. ECMAC's work helped to inform our 2023 Building a Better Future referendum, and Building a Better Future's Oversight Task Force agreed with ECMAC's suggestions, and additional facility space became a part of the 2023 referendum as a result of that work. Again, thanks to our community's support of Building a Better Future in 2023, a new elementary school and additions to Maple Grove Senior High were approved to address space constraints. During the 2023 Building a Better Future referendum, it was additionally noted that attendance boundary changes were needed no matter the outcome of the referendum vote. With the additional facility space being added with the community's referendum support, attendance boundary changes will be limited to elementary and middle schools and impact fewer families, as promised. So just to be clear, there are no changes being made at the high school level. We understand that many community members make lots of decisions based on their household's school assignments. So this process is not something that we want to be doing often. In fact, it's been more than 15 years since we've last done changes on this scale. We've come to a point, however, where it's needed. This attendance boundary change process kicked off this past fall. And at that time, community members had an opportunity to provide their thoughts on the parameters the core team should be using in creating the proposed scenarios. Nearly 3,000 community members participated. These are now called our community-built parameters, which we'll go through momentarily. Since last September, the attendance boundary changes core team has been utilizing the community-built parameters to develop proposed scenarios. In January, 4 proposed scenarios resulted from this work, and nearly 3,500 community members shared their thoughts at that time on the 4 proposed scenarios. That feedback helped to lower the number of scenarios and make adjustments to them. And tonight, you'll have an opportunity to provide feedback on these updates. These events in March will likely wrap up district-wide feedback opportunities, so it's critically important to us that we hear your voice. In April, we'll once again review community feedback and consider adjustments to the updated scenarios. Final attendance boundaries will then be announced in May. The new attendance boundaries, however, will not go into effect until the fall of 2026. The only exception to this timeline is Crestview Elementary. Crestview families will make their move in the fall of 2025. Our Building a Better Future plan shared that an elementary school would be repurposed to serve pre-kindergarten grades and to provide enrichment and community-based programming needs. After much research and consideration, Crestview Elementary School was the school chosen to do this. So Crestview's kindergarten through grade 5 students and their staff will be moving schools at the start of the 2025-26 school year, which is next school year. Now, you've likely put these two pieces together, but the 2026 timeline matches with the opening of the new school in Northwest Maple Grove. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to John Morstead, Osseo Area Schools Executive Director of Finance and Operations, to walk us through the parameters and updated scenarios.
Thank you, Kelly. Okay, these are the community-built parameters the core team worked with to create the proposed scenarios. Starting with centering our core values of honor and integrity, belonging, inclusion, and excellence, transparency, and intrinsic value. Ensure scenarios can function in our system, including but not limited to transportation, building utilization and capacity, enrollment, both current and future, teaching and learning program offerings, and financial cost. Ensure scenarios have longevity in our system. Follow the teacher-student class targets established by the school board. Consider the number of students impacted for each scenario, and consider the student demographics of each scenario. Consider connecting more schools from level to level, keep neighborhoods intact as much as possible, minimize non-contiguous, non-adjoining areas, maintain the 8/10 of a mile elementary and 1 mile secondary transportation service areas or walk zones, maintain safety standards in regards to bus routing, trying to avoid major highways, etc., avoid lengthy travel times on buses, comply with state laws, school board policy, and negotiated agreements. As you can see, this is a pretty good list of parameters. As we review the updated scenarios, you may notice that some of these parameters are adhered to more than others from scenario to scenario. The core team did their best to utilize all the parameters as much as possible, again with utilizing the size schools and current placement of school buildings that we have today and are soon expecting. In just a few minutes, as we'll be going through the updated scenarios, as Kelly mentioned, you have the opportunity to provide feedback and ask questions in the small group portion of tonight's event. Please make sure to note your comments and questions, and we'll get to those soon. This is an overview of the updated scenarios being shared tonight. January's scenarios, number 1 and 2, are moved forward with some adjustments made to each scenario. Between 2,000 and 2,600 elementary and middle school students are proposed to move, which is approximately 9 to 12% of the district's total enrollment. Bullet points 3 and 4 mention specific groups of students that would be impacted. As noted in the community-built parameters, this was looked at for all the scenarios, and this is just a snapshot of that. The racial demographics of the schools wouldn't change by more than 5% in the majority of cases, and the poverty demographics also would not change by more than 5% in the majority of cases. Okay, let's get down to the good stuff. Scenario number 1A, this is the updated scenario, been renamed. This is not exactly the same as the January scenario 1. A few tweaks have been made. Before we go through those, again, I'm going to orient you to the map here. So the colors represent the attendance boundaries for the middle schools. Orange being Osseo Middle, red for Maple Grove Middle, green for Northview Middle, and blue for Brooklyn Middle. Within each color group, you will see the proposed attendance boundaries for the elementary schools feeding that particular middle school. You'll also see an elementary school, Edinbrook Elementary, with a purple hashtag coloring. One of the goals of the parameters is to reduce the number of elementary schools that split students to different middle schools. For reference, today we have 7 elementary locations that split to multiple middle schools. In scenario 1A, we have 1. Approximately 2,600 elementary and middle school students would be impacted in this scenario. This is about 400 fewer than the January proposal. Some of the strengths of this scenario are its building use efficiency, elimination of non-adjoining geographical areas, and an improved feeder-like structure as students would move with classmates from elementary to middle school. This scenario would last for the foreseeable future. In the elementary school, neighborhoods would maintain mostly intact as more natural barriers, major roadways, parks, creeks, and lakes are utilized as the boundaries. In all but one school building, being Oakview, would be within its own attendance boundary, which means the students closest to each school would be able to attend and potentially walk there. And Oakview's boundary actually still allows for students who live directly across the street would be part of a walk zone to that school. At the middle school, the non-adjoining geographic areas that are currently exist at Northview Middle School would be eliminated. And again, all but one school building, being Brooklyn Middle, would be within its own attendance boundary. It's again right across the street from where its attendance boundary begins. This means students closest to each school would be able to attend and potentially walk there. Moving to scenario number 2A, again, this is not exactly the same as scenario 2 from January. Approximately 2,000 elementary and middle school students would be impacted in this scenario, which is about 100 fewer than the January proposal. Some of the strengths of this scenario are its low number of changes, functionality in the system, including efficiencies with building use and transportation services, elimination of non-adjoining geographic areas, and an improved feeder-like structure as students move with classmates between elementary and middle. This scenario would last for the foreseeable future. Elementary schools, neighborhoods would maintain be mostly intact as more natural barriers again are followed. All but one school, Oakview, would be within their attendance boundary. Again, students closest to each school would be able to attend and potentially walk there. Middle schools, the non-adjoining geographic areas currently in Northview would be eliminated. And again, all but one building, being Brooklyn Middle, would be within its own attendance boundary, but again, right across the street. In this scenario, you'll notice Edinbrook is, again, the only school that splits to 2 middle schools, and the boundary's a little bit different than it was in scenario 1A versus 2A, but it's still splitting to just 2 schools. Now that you've seen updated scenarios, a common question is going to be, how does this specifically affect them? To help ensure and help you with that, we want to please have you check the Boundaries website for interactive maps for each of the proposed scenarios, in which you can type your address in and find out the specific impacts. The website is district279.org/boundaries. Chromebooks are available tonight if you'd like to take a look while you're here. We're going to look at a few FAQ questions and go through some of the common ones. More questions can, of course, be asked within your small groups and are also available online. One of the most common questions is, if I want to go to a different school than my boundary school, can I? The answer is yes and no. So in short, here's the best way I'm going to explain all of this. If in the past you have taken action to select your school, to select a school for your child that is different than the one you were assigned to, you have the right to choose to stay at that school. Applications do not need to be refilled out for that. So that would apply to current in-district transfer students, and current open enrolled students have the right to stay at the location they're at. As shared in January, students attending their home school will be required to attend the school that they're assigned to through the change process. One adjustment that has been made to this, however, is that the 2026-2027 5th grade and 8th grade classes can choose to remain at their current school if they would like. We received a lot of feedback about this through the first process. We listened, we heard you, we wanted to change that option. So if you would move for 1 year, for the last year of middle school or the last year of high school, you will have the opportunity to remain at your current school. This hold harmless option for 5th and 8th graders is new, and it's purely being offered because it was a consistent request to the feedback that was received in January and February. More information will be coming out on how to make this selection. The currently restricted in-district transfer and open enrolled schools will remain in place until a review has been completed, which will happen no later than January 15th of 2027, which will be in time for any new in-district transfer requests for the 27-28 school year. Fernbrook is a great example of this. The building has been tight for quite some time, and we need to see how new changes are supported with the boundary adjustments for that first year. Busing information that usually goes along with these changes will be shared in its normal timeline in the regular back-to-school season. So for the fall of 26 implementation, expect to see a communication regarding transportation in August of 2026. A lot more answers to frequently asked questions have been added to the Boundary website. Feel free to check them out at, again, district279.org/boundaries. At this time, I'm going to turn it back to Assistant Superintendent Parfart to talk about the transition and feedback opportunities.
First, our district greatly appreciates your flexibility with these changes. Please know that our entire Osseo Area Schools team is here for you to help make this transition go as smoothly as possible. All our schools, as always, will be very welcoming to students and their families as this change is made. Make sure to reach out and connect if your school is reassigned. Also, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to our hotlines at Better Future at district279.org or by calling 763-391-8990 at any time. It is now time for the feedback portion of the night, likely what you've all been patiently waiting for. As I've shared, community voice is very important to us, and there are 2 ways that you can choose to provide feedback this evening. Option 1 is to go to your assigned small group. Your name tag color matches the small group that you're assigned to, and in a minute, the facilitator of each small group will hold up the color for their group so you can easily find where you need to go. If you haven't been assigned a group, please report to the check-in table at the entrance and we'll get you all set up. The second way you can provide feedback is to utilize the QR code on the screen and fill out the Google form via the website link. All of your feedback, whether that's via the small group or through the feedback form, will be reviewed by the core team in the coming weeks. Again, this month will likely wrap up district-wide feedback opportunities. Final attendance boundaries are expected to be approved in May. Before we close out the presentation portion of this evening, I want to introduce School Board Member Director Erica Foster. And I want to thank you for being here with us tonight, Erica. And once again, a reminder to all of you that there are multiple ways for you to stay informed. Refer to district279.org/boundaries for the latest information. Parents and caregivers, you can stay tuned to regular updates via email and text. And all of our community members can also connect with these hotlines. Better Future at district279.org or by calling 763-391-8990. Thank you again so much for joining us tonight and taking time out of your busy schedules. We really appreciate all of your help with making these needed changes to be the best that they can be. So thank you very much. And at this time, could the groups hold up their facilitators, hold up the colors, and if you want to match your name.